Hi, everyone. My name is Kristina Brunelle, and we are back with Corey Ralston from Child Actor
Hello.
101. Yay! And Corey has been gracious enough to sit down with us and answer a whole bunch of the types of questions that parents of child actors have when it comes to this business. And given his background and expertise, he's the one. He's got the answers. So, Corey,
Hope
thank you
so.
again, as always.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
So nice to be able to chat with you. So, first question. Um, when parents think about the audition process, I think a lot of parents think that the way that works is that all casting directors universally will watch every single tape from beginning to end of the thousands that they might get with a complete and total focus. And it would be wonderful if you could shed some light for us on what's a more perhaps realistic view of what the casting process looks like.
This blew my mind when I learned about this, and it all made sense. But like everyone sort of assumes because we live in a like linear, existence of time, that's how the casting process is. But it's not linear whatsoever. There's not a time for the first reads and callbacks and then this and that and so on. There are so many cogs in the wheel that go into like who they're going to read, or maybe they're going to change things up because this actor now is free and they're a different race than the other actor was before, and now they need to read different kinds of kids, or maybe they're going to change the age on one of the characters, or maybe like they've leaned towards having like a heavyset girl, and like all the other kids, they don't need to watch those tapes right now because they've kind of leaning in one direction. So I think that everyone assumes that, like, oh, even when they hear like, oh, my kid got a call back, but then I saw that they put the like roll out on breakdowns again, and so I guess we are not up for it. Like there is no truth to that. They're at the same time they're reading people for the first time. Listen, for even Hannah Montana, when Miley Cyrus had the role, Disney was pretty certain on or whatever. Like the week before they like had their table read, they were still pre-reading girls for Hannah Montana,
Oh,
like for first reads, just in case something happened and maybe they needed to reshoot the pilot and they needed options. And so you never know what stage casting is at. And so I
mm,
think, like it may be that you were asked to self tape for something and all of a sudden another actor is involved and they don't need to look at this certain type of kid anymore. And so maybe your
right.
tape doesn't get watched, you know? So I think, the thing to be grateful for is the opportunity, to be able to be seen by casting. And that's great. And if you can keep their attention and they watch your whole self tape, that's even more amazing. But like there's so many variables in the casting process that it's just not cut and dry. And so
Yeah.
I wish more people would understand that it's not a linear this stage and this stage and this stage process at all.
Mm, that was very helpful.
I mean,
Um,
I've even had a kid that network tested for a role, and casting came back, and the like network didn't like any of the kids that read for it, and so
oh,
they were going to start like cast some of the kids from the network test for other roles, and then went back to the drawing board for this other role. So you never know. So some people like,
oh,
oh yeah, they just network tested for that role, so like why bother? But no, you never know what's going on, and it could be up to the
mm,
last minute. So yeah, there's always a chance. There's always a chance that you could be perfect for it, but there's a chance that maybe your hard work, might not be seen this round. But
sure.
the fact that you put your best effort and there's opportunity to be seen by casting, always take that.
Right. Well, and it's good practice for
Hmm.
building those muscles for the next time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love the creative outlet and aspect of acting so much that even being a talent manager, one of the reasons that I do carve out a couple hours of my day to coach is because like I'm a former actor, I'm a creative person, and so I never think it's a waste of time to read a script, be in a scene, and try on a character's skin ever.
Yeah.
So
You get to
yeah.
do what you love.
And so if your kid loves it, like they should, to pursue something this intense, then yeah, who cares if the self tape wasn't watched, or maybe like um a part of it was or what have you. You know, it was a good experience. It should be.
Yeah. Well, and I think I've heard you say that before of the audition. If you've got the audition, you should be delighted and happy at that
Yeah.
because getting the role is icing on the cake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the one like litmus test of maybe if you're doing things right is if you get a callback. But beyond that is so beyond, like out of your hands. Like
Right.
there's so many like, like I said, cogs in the wheel. There's so many variables. There's so many things going on. So you can't judge your worth by, like how many things you got to read for or like how many jobs you didn't book or what have you. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think there's a good thing. A lot of parents had really would love to know, like, if there was some sort of like time or some sort of stamp or some sort of notification that they could see if Castian watched their tape or not. And I mean, believe me, I wish there was that too, so I can get feedback or know as well. But I think it's better not knowing.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that because we've submitted for some things where um, people said, submit a YouTube link, and then you can see like how many times was it watched, and was it watched fully all the way to the end or not, and what does that
Yeah,
mean? And then you start ascribing meaning to all of those things. Like just audition, submit, and
exactly.
forget.
You would worry about, like all the reasons why it wasn't watched or didn't watch all the way, but like I said, you have no idea. And so even casting, like, you ask for feedback and they have so many things that they can't talk about or don't know yet or whatever, so they don't know what to say half the time. Like
Yep.
there's just a lot of balls in the air.
Well, and we see that a lot. Parents, to your point about getting notified if they watch, or even a lot of parents I know they get frustrated by the idea that they don't get told no,
Mm,
right? It's either you get told yes or silence. And that can be really hard for a lot of parents because they're used to being told no. And I try to explain to folks, it's like, listen, if you have a 4,000 applicants for a job and you don't have an automated system that tells them no, because there isn't one to my knowledge,
right,
then are you going to spend your time telling all of them no with individual emails, or are you going to get on to the next job and try to find the next person to fill the next role? Like,
right. I know
what's
I
worse?
had I had a client once upon a time, and they were very well intentioned, but every audition that they had, they would write on their calendar, like in their kitchen, like when the thing was going to shoot and all this stuff. So like they had this calendar of these maybes that may happen, and
Mm,
and like being upset that it didn't come to be, or just having these like, oh, well, should we audition for this because this other thing might be filming, like there's just so many so many like bad ideas with that. So the best thing is just to, you don't need the no, you know and you could be surprised if it is a yes, but just
yeah.
audition and put it behind you because that was your job to go, put yourself in front of casting. I had my first client actually audition for a commercial, and usually that's a fast paced part of the industry where, like in a day you could be cast for a role. A year later to the day, found out he booked the job for like a GameStop or GameFly or one of those
Oh my gosh.
companies. But yeah, so you never know. You could have written something off or forgotten that you even auditioned for something, and it may happen for you. But who
Right.
knows?
Right now, the kid who plays Percy Jackson. I saw an interview with him where he said that he auditioned for it and he didn't hear anything for 10 months. And when they came back after 10 months, he was like, "Are you sure? Like I don't even look the same."
Right.
Like, but lo and behold, there he is, Percy Jackson. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally fine.
and things do get put on hold, and things, there's so many variables. Hollywood is so there's nothing predictable about it. Series get canceled after one episode, or films get brought back to life, or all of a sudden there's a reboot of something, or advertisers switch. I mean, there's so many variables. It's a crazy industry in itself that like getting that no would just be impossible, and you don't want to know because there's so many reasons that you couldn't wrap your brain around it. I can't wrap my brain around it. So,
Yeah. Yeah, you do have to have a certain amount of tolerance for the chaotic and unpredictable.
mhm.
Survive. Yeah.
To be very
Yeah.
flexible.
So along those lines, when you think about what reps, like talent agents, managers, et cetera, really need from parents, in order for actors to be able to do their jobs well as the reps themselves. What would you say marks a family as easy to work with in the best possible way?
Mm, it's a great question. Um, that they don't have really high expectations, that are like easygoing and have, like trust, I think is important. Um, Even in our group, I see this so often where people are nervous about their agencies that they have your kid isn't booked or they don't hear enough from their reps or whatever. Like there's a level of trust. It takes a lot for a rep to take on, like a new client. And so like it's a lot of work. And then you have to, like get to know this client in your head well so you could pitch them to casting and like, there's so much involved in bringing someone on board that like you have to trust that that is something that is wanted by both sides, you know
Mhm.
and that you don't have crazy expectations of what you think should be happening. Of course there are some basic things that you should expect, common decency, like returning your phone calls and things like that, of course.
Right.
But um yeah, I think just like having going for the ride and trusting the people that the pros on your team that are doing their job and have experience doing it, that are have your kids best interest at heart. I think that is fundamentally one of the most important things that makes that relationship work. And I think secondary to that would just be um keeping your materials updated. That's all we
Mm,
have, to
right.
let everyone know who your kid is by their headshot and what, like, their reel and their clips and resume and those things are so important. That's all we have to show the world who they are and what they could be. And so if you don't have an example of how awesome they are at something, then we need that. So, keeping, your materials updated and stocked and I think that is just so important. And a lot of reps don't even have time to complain about that.
Right.
So,
Because they're so busy.
knowing, yeah, knowing that you need to have, like, examples of their skill and how they look and things like that is very important.
And corollary to that, if you were to give advice to parents about how often they should reshoot headshots for their kids, how often would you say?
Oh man, I've gotten a lot more lax on this over time. But I would say, kids, I would say once a year is pretty good. Like a general rule is if your kid changes, sometimes we all go through like a rapid aging, not me,
Yep.
just kidding. um,
Speak for
um,
yourself. Yeah.
yeah, no, but like once your look starts to change or whatever, that's obviously should be time to get new headshots. But once a year is usually good. But I love when 6 months later or 8 months later that like an actor will do like a mini shoot, like a one look shoot or something, and just to bring something fresh to their profile. Like, believe it
Okay.
or not, headshots do get stale.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
casting does see the same headshot and we see the same headshot, but there is some unspoken magicness about having like new headshots. And I think it sort of like excites everyone, excites the actor that they have something new that looks good and modern and looks like them. And so at least once a year, but update it when you feel you can, just put some new life into it every now and then.
I love that. Yeah, especially I imagine for kids because I'm thinking about our son when he was younger. He would tend to go out and then he'd go up and then he'd go
Mm.
out and then he'd go up. So his face would expand and then get skinny and then expand. So yeah,
Yeah,
he
and
always
there
had a
there are
different
some
look.
kids that, like, 2 years pass and they haven't changed at all. And so like really judge it by how they look, but also know that just because they haven't changed looks, like, just having something new is, like, makes your reps remind your reps who you are and gets them excited about sending new headshots out. And it could be like a new, like, type to play, maybe a character, or there's so many reasons why um freshening up your headshots is a good idea.
It's like the new kid in town. I love it. All right, so switch from headshots to self tapes. Okay, so they've changed the world. Like I personally could not have ever supported our daughter in the pre-COVID world
Right.
because I had a full-time job. I was like doing all the things. I would not going to be driving all over hither, thither, and yon to get her to auditions. But now we can do this in our house, so it's much easier. What do you feel are the biggest misconceptions that parents have about what makes a self tape stand out?
I'm not even sure that parents are thinking about self tape standing out. I think, like I had said last time we spoke, about like perfection, expecting like every line to be word perfect and things like that, or like like spotless face or hair or whatever. I think that that is something that parents spend too much time and energy thinking about.
Mhm.
But I wish that parents would look at their kids self taped as, is this something that I'm drawn in by right off the bat, or is this a performance that I would see on TV? you
Is
know
it believable?
yeah, like, is because if not, then like, you need to obviously be coached, or have some feedback, or something that can show you how to stand out and be memorable, or shake things up, or be interesting. That's my big thing, is being memorable and interesting is so important. So yeah, I think parents, maybe a misconception is that they just think it has to be perfect, and
Okay.
they stress about so many things, like, oh, we didn't say you could ad lib that line, or you should only walk in from the right. I mean, there's so many, it's not, rigid. Things should feel alive, and life is messy.
Yeah. So along those lines, I love that. It is messy. And when it comes to, we've got headshots, resumes, reels, profiles, all the things. What do you think matters the most? And what do you think parents tend to overthink?
I think headshots matter the most, because it's the entryway to, it's your calling card. It's
Mhm.
the most important thing. It's when, like, when agents submit actors for a role, doesn't mean they're getting that chance to self tape for it.
Mhm.
But casting is looking through a sea of thumbnails, which has changed the way headshots have been shot as well. um
In
I
what
think
way?
that, in what way, that just the crops tend to be tighter, because when you're looking at a 1 inch by 1 inch thumbnail, you want to see the eyes and stuff. And so I remember, you know, years ago, when people were like, why'd you crop my kid's ear off, or their hair off, or whatever? I'm like, because that's not the important part of the picture. And so I think, so probably the most important thing is headshots, and probably the thing that parents stress about and get wrong a lot of times is headshots as well.
Mm.
By going to see the wrong, or having a family friend do it, or whoever did your portraits or your dance team pictures or whatever. Like,
Senior
um
class photos. Yeah.
actor headshots are a totally different thing. They're not a portrait. They're not posed. It's a totally different thing, and it's built for how casting looks at headshots and how they view them. And so it's not something that a lot of people know how to do. And so getting it done, by the right person who has industry experience working with actors is very important. And not also stressing about the perfect look or whatever, or the perfect clothes or whatever. It's just about creating real life, making things alive, and characters that feel like relatable is
Yeah.
what's important.
Yeah. I've had a fair number of parents say, but that doesn't even look like her. It's
Yeah,
like, it might not look like her to you, but it
right.
looks like a character she could be.
When I'm going through headshots, like, I instantly will like, oh, that's the essence of this person. And I've had people say the same thing to me. I've had headshots done many times, even still in this industry. I get them done every now and then. And the ones that people are like, oh, that is so you, Corey. And I look at them like, that, so the way we want to be seen, or the way we think our children should be seen, is not necessarily their vibe, or like how everyone sees them. And so um this is something that parents hate, because they've invested the money into it, but it's not your choice what
Yeah.
headshots are used to send out to casting. It's your talent reps choices. And so
Yeah.
if you like certain pictures from the 350 shots you got, print some up and put them in a frame and put them in your house, or send them as Christmas gifts or whatever. You
Right.
pay for them, that's great. But
Make a card.
um Like, I hate how my kid looks in that picture. Don't use that. Like, that's just really, it's not your choice because you're not the one pitching the kid or knowing what headshots work and trends of the industry and all of that nuance.
Yeah, very true. Abby did that with her last round. She's like, "Don't I get to pick?" I'm like, "No, you don't.
No, yeah.
You don't." All right. So you have worked on multiple sides of the industry in so many ways. You've been a headshot photographer. Um,
Hmm.
you've been an
I'm very
actor.
picky.
You, yes, it's what makes you good at what you're doing. So you've acted, you've coached, you've managed, you've built this entire community. Um, what part of the gestalt, the whole business, surprises you the most, even after all these years?
What surprises me and disappoints me at the same time is that sometimes, or most of the time, that the catch 22 happens where you don't have any credits, and so producers are scared of hiring someone. Kids do have it a lot better, but still, even then, they tend to. And I'm sure parents out here, you've seen it yourself, like, oh, like my kid went so far in the process that they had all these kids and they end up casting that one kid that's been in everything, you know and so you feel like every audition, like, oh, it could be anybody, it could, and it ends up being people with experience because it's insurance for production companies.
Sure.
And so I am still disappointed and surprised that does happen as often as it does, but that's not saying that it does not happen. But the rule here and what's important is to get that experience, you know, to get cast in short films and co-stars and like all of the things that you could show your experience. If you have a good demo reel of all characters and types you could play and showing your skill, sometimes that is just as attractive and good insurance for, producers to trust that you're not going to freak out because you never had a big job before.
Right.
So um
They're
yeah,
taking a chance
I
on you.
So I'm like, oh man, like after all of that, and they saw everybody, and they had someone else waiting in their, back pocket that just did 3 films this year.
Right.
That always frustrates me. Every agent and manager gonna tell you the same thing too. Like, it's very
Yeah.
frustrating, but it's a very expensive industry, and so they want to, make sure
Right.
that everything's gonna be fine, and they need that insurance. So
Yeah.
don't let that get you down, though. Don't let that get you down. I like to say, be so into the character and so, put your own stamp on it that, like, they watch it and they can't see anybody but you playing it. Like, who else could play this part? If you give them no choice but to be you, then you'll make it a lot harder for them to say no.
Yeah. And at the very least, then you're that much more memorable for the next role.
Hmm. And just know, and we just talked about, like, a few minutes ago, we're talking about self tapes and how, like, casting may see them or may not. But what I want you to know is that casting director, they're in the business of knowing actors, right? That's their worth. Like, that's how, like, they get jobs. Like, I've worked on these projects and I've seen 4,000 young boys for this role, and, like, so, like, I really have my niche in there. Casting directors take really great notes on every actor that they see. So even if they watch your self tape and they know that they're going a different way, like, they are still wanting to know who's out there and what their talent is and what types they play and what their vibe is, so they can have this database. So they want to know every actor and they want you to be good. And like, just because you didn't get a callback or they may have not watched all your tape, they are noticing. And so be noticeable, which is most
Right.
important. Don't blend in. Don't, like, don't play it safe. Like, show yourself, and so they can be like, oh, I got to take note of that kid. That was interesting. That is probably the most important thing.
Right. Isn't that the book the room, even if you don't book the job?
Yeah, that's most
Yeah.
important. Hmm.
Yeah. All right. So lightning round time.
Okay.
I got some questions for you.
Okay.
Comedy or drama?
Oh, pass. I mean, depends on what my soul needs. I'm a crier, so I love to cry. I love a sad movie when I need a sad movie, but I also
Oh,
need, like, sitcoms, like dumb sitcoms. I need things like that too, just to, like, put me in a good mood. So I could never choose. No.
I love it. Have you seen it's on Netflix right now, Remarkably Bright Creatures?
Yeah, oh, I loved it.
Yes, right?
I
I was like,
loved it.
you made me think of
Hmm.
it when you said crying. I was like, oh, bring me the
Yes, I did
tissues.
cry. I did cry.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, it was so good. All right, theater or on camera, on stage or on film?
Oh, that's a devastating choice to have to make, but I would say film. There's
Okay,
something so much more intimate about it, but there's nothing can replace the feeling of being on stage with an audience watching you and adoring you. So it's a hard
sure.
choice, but for me personally, I'd say film.
Yeah. Somebody I was watching the other day was talking about they think there's going to be a huge resurgence of live theater because people are going to be craving authenticity and are
I
getting
hope
tired of
so.
looking at their screens, which is interesting. Yeah.
I'm a Broadway nerd at heart. I'm a musical theater boy, so yes, I will always love the theater. But there's something so there's so much more you could do on film that you could never do on stage.
True. Very true. All right. Callback or booking?
Call back, right? Call back.
Yeah.
The booking is so stressful. Every part of the cast process is so stressful. But callback is like, yes, they noticed me. I'm doing something right. I get to meet more people in the room that are making these choices. Yes, callback all the way.
Love it. Favorite performance by a young actor?
I guess I'll just go what came off the top of my head. May Whitman in Hope Floats.
Oh, okay.
She has the
That's a good one.
scene where her dad is leaving and she's chasing after
Hmm.
the car and she's just
Mm,
devastatingly crying and it's so heartbreaking and so real that I've always been amazed and touched by it. But there's so many child performances I like, but I mean that popped in my head first, so I'm sticking with it.
okay. Most overrated piece of industry advice?
Piece of advice? Did you say? I don't know. I'm trying to think of some of the cliches out there. Um, maybe like just smile. Like just the whole cheesiness of it.
Yep.
Like in the 80s or 90s when I was, like trying to be an actor myself, and it was always the like big smiles and like kind of phony like
You just made me think of a
um
commercial for like
commercial or
McDonald's or
like
something. Yeah.
yeah, multicam sitcom, and I think that sort of like having that sort of anti-genuine vibe is bad, and I think that's still out there. Like you want to just put on your happy face and go in there and shine and sparkle, but you could sparkle just being genuine as well.
Yeah, I hear a lot more of authenticity and groundedness
Hmm.
all the time than you see
Keeping it
on the screen
real.
now.
Uda Hagen said it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Film or television?
Oh, Um, I love TV. I do. I
Hmm.
love TV. I think it's apparent by all of the movie stars that are now doing series, that
Hmm.
there is so much you can tell with even like a limited series. And I'm known for binging them until 4 in the morning when I like, oh, I should have started this at 10 o'clock. Why did I do that? Because now I have to know. I just watched the other night, I just watched the love story of JFK Jr. and his wife, and they I guess Ryan Murphy did like a short, series that was on early in the year, and I binged that, and I
Oh, I
didn't
haven't
think that
seen
I was
that.
going to get too involved, and here I am bawling at the end, and I was like, that was so
Oh,
good. Yeah, so TV is opening up so many creative doors, and there's so much content with streaming and so many networks and places that you can watch TV. It's very exciting. Mm-hmm.
that is, yeah, and it's commercial free, which is nice too.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Sometimes.
yeah, true. Depends what you're watching. Um, Self tapes or in person auditions?
In-person auditions, I got to keep it old school. There's a magic to it, and there's the opportunity to show so much more of yourself, and be able to like make a mistake and try again, or having someone see something in you, and like there's many times where like you'll be in person and they'll be like, oh, hold on, let me run down the hall and go get someone to come watch this. There's so much
Yeah.
like spontaneity or things that could happen from in person, appointments. And so I wish there was more of that, but I do love that self tapes allows so much more opportunity and a lot less stress to like get it right. A lot less
Mm,
stress on young actors.
true. I remember one of Evie's first auditions was in the room, and she made everybody cry in a good way, but
Yeah.
but yeah, it was kind of magical. Not gonna lie. Favorite actor or actress when you were growing up?
I'm still probably still my favorite actor, Leonardo DiCaprio. I'm just been a
Mm.
huge fan. He uh, inspired me. So many roles he played when he was younger, and even like in his age. We're not that far apart in age. Um, yeah, I've always loved him. And favorite actress. Oh, I'm like a Meryl Streep person, and I think I always have been as well.
You must be
So
going crazy right now with Devil Wears Prada 2 out.
I know I haven't seen it yet.
I really recommend you watch one at home first to refresh.
Oh, I watch like every weekend. What are you kidding? Yeah, yeah. It's refresh. I know it by heart. Yeah,
Okay, never
can't
mind then.
surprise me with
But
yeah. Mm-hmm.
for
No,
those
I
of us
got
who
it.
haven't, it's helpful for a reminder of like because
Yeah,
the jokes
I
that
adore
they
that
build
movie.
directly on some of the jokes from number one, so it's good to have it fresh in your mind. Um, Most underrated skill for a child actor.
Charisma,
Mm,
right?
yeah,
Just how you present yourself, how you make yourself likable is the most underrated skill. I always say we work so hard on knowing how to act and learning, like how to be a good actor, but how often are we working on our presentation, how we present ourselves? Because a lot of times it's scared and quiet or nervous, and we're not letting our light shine. And charisma is a superpower, and it's the way that everyone makes it in this world. It's how you find a partner. It's how you get a job. It's how you make friends. It means so much, and it means even more in the entertainment industry. And so, very underrated. It's that's one of my platforms, my things that I will go to my grave promoting and helping teach is charisma. Yeah.
maybe on your gravestone. He was a little
Yeah, it'll be on my tombstone.
Yeah, and maybe that's the answer to this next question is one word every parent should remember in this business.
One word every parent should what?
Remember in this business.
Um I don't know about a word, but I will say no is only temporary.
Mm, I love that.
So reframe your ideas of the word no because it may just mean not this moment.
It's
It
not
could
yet.
mean 2 hours from now. You never know. But no is only
Sure.
temporary. So don't take rejection that hard.
Hey. Well, on that note, it's temporary until we see you again next week.
Yeah. This
So
was fun.
thank you so much for your time today. Always
You're
appreciated.
welcome. Bye
And
everybody.
I look forward to it. See you.